From the Depths, Noob Playthrough, Episode 16. Well, huge update. It was the detector one, and you could call it a game changer. You're looking at the modified torpedo boat, now called the Lineker. All I've added to it is a radar at the top there, as well as an intra-vehicle communicator. And it is actually a far more lethal weapon now than it was before. Super tiny, and I added or replaced some of the metal at the top with alloy, so its radar profile is just nothing. Combine that with its erratic way that it moves, or not really erratic, but just not linear, and Onyx has a super hard time hitting it. 5 of these demolished a 65 fleet that had 2 buttresses and a, was it Alcazar? Or, yeah, something. It was a 65 and it just demolished them. And this is the negotiator or the missile boat, and all I did to it as well is I just had radar as well as just a couple little, I think those are laser rangefinders. So far this seemed to do the job as well, but still early on I'm doing a lot of testing to see what works and doesn't work still. And it also has the inter-vehicle communicator or whatever it's called. I consider that vital, especially with a fleet like this. And this is the setup that this could change the most over time. I'm not really sure this is where I want to keep it, but at this point I don't know where else. As I said, still lots of experimenting going on. One thing I really like about the Thug is it's so low in the water that it would help reduce its radar profile a lot as well, just simply by the fact that it's low. It still has a lot of steel on it, and I don't know how much really I can replace it with alloy and not lose some armor, but the lowness again, I'm sure helps the radar profile. Okay, and so today's mission is to take the Onyx throne, and we've already kind of screwed up actually. When I went into the battle, I thought I brought in 4 thugs that had already been converted to the new detector apparatus, or what do you want to call it. Turns out one wasn't, so I immediately had to take one out of the battle, which reduced, a lot of my firepower right off the bat. Then the next big error I made was I brought 2 negotiators and missile boats into this conflict, or this battle, and as you'll see a number of times, I for some reason keep not noticing that it's not set to combat. So easily arguably, I didn't deserve to win this one, but I do anyway, luckily. And I think it was the EMP which did it, because what was happening, if I'm correct, is the EMP kept killing off him repairing his detector technology, so even though he could fire, the accuracy just kept deteriorating. Yes, because this thing has fearsome repairability, and unless you can get on top of that, you're doomed in this battle. Here I'm trying to advance in a line and trying to hit them all at once as much as possible. One of the big problems taking the Onyx throne here is there's a lot of shallow water, little islands and stuff around it, so it's really easy over the course of the battle for your ship to run aground and get hung up in something really, well, where your ship gets a shit shot out of it. So as much as possible, obviously, you want to try shut down and damage as many guns right off the bat as possible. Now, it didn't feel like I did a very good job at that so far, but eventually it seemed to have been enough. Yeah, here we go. First time, don't seem to notice. Wake up. Fortunately, it took me a while. You'd think I'd notice the massive missiles that sort of just are floating towards it instead of actually, but I just never clicked in. It's so obvious when I look now, but when I was playing, oblivious. If this was real life and we lost this battle, I would have been called in front of a tribunal or whatever, and my head would have been chopped off for right off the bat, not bringing a modified Thug in and then not getting one of the missile ships mobile. That's unforgivable. Unfortunately, this is not real life, and I don't beat myself up too often. There's a reason this is called a noob playthrough. If I'm lucky, this fortress will soon sink low enough into the water that even the missiles that are just floating towards it will have some effect. Many guns still firing, but very few of them have any accuracy, so it's really not the threat it looks like. Pretty sure the fortress is having a hard time even seeing or really detecting at this distance already because it's so deteriorated. I'll be honest, overall, I love this new update. In many ways, I consider it a massive improvement. At first I was a little on the fence about the single resource, and then I went through a battle and realized how much easier things like repairing after the battle is now. And yeah, I'm a total convert now in all respects. There are so many specialty ships now that can be designed to specifically use or avoid the detection technologies. Of all my 3 ships, the Thug, the torpedo boat, and the missile ship, I think the torpedo boat came out the best. It seems to be the biggest improvement in lethality, if you want to call it that, of all of them. They all seem to be a bit more lethal, but the torpedo boat, super happy with. I'm pretty sure 90% of it is simply the fact that it's so small and so just goes all over the place that it's just impossible to track in so many ways. Kind of interesting, before the update came through, I threw 6 torpedo boats at that same 65 square. Didn't record it because those torpedo battles tend to be a bit boring over time. But the 6 I threw in, 3 of them got sunk. It eventually took the fleet down, but lost 3 of them. Then turns out I forgot to save it, redid the battle after the update, this time with only 5 torpedo boats, and just slaughtered the fleet. Oh, correction, I couldn't have forgot to save it because those 3 green X's are on the map now. So that must be in another 65 square then. But yeah, the same fact though, is the new updated torpedo boats are so much more improved. Those 3 green X's also symbolize the first losses I've had in this campaign, which is actually pretty incredible so far. But it finally happened, and yeah, lost 3 torpedo boats in one battle. They really only have about 400 blocks per boat, so even losing 3 of them is not really much of a loss. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to really have a use for a torpedo boat when I go against the white flares, so unless I convert it to missiles, we won't be seeing much more of that one. What's kind of helping me here is because of all the shallow ground and islands in the area, my ships are kind of either run aground or just, for whatever reason, are keeping quite a long distance and just not really in close range of his guns, which are really inaccurate, but if they get a good lucky shot if I'm close, they can still hurt me. So even though I'm hurting him not very much here, he's not hurting me barely at all. So overall, I'm gradually climbing on top of him. Actually, you know, I can hardly wait to see the giant pile of scrap I'm going to be left with after this. This is going to be great. That reminds me, I'm not sure if the update also changed this, but it didn't seem like my supply or resource collection boats were just simply automatically picking up the salvage on the map. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or they changed something, or yeah, I'll have to do a bit more research there. I also noticed there's a bunch of new blocks, and yeah, if you're one of those kind of people that are really anal about reducing block count, you're gonna have to redesign your whole fleet now. Fortunately, I'm not that bad, but yeah, I can see in a lot of my boats that if I really wanted to go at it, I could reduce quite a lot of blocks now. For some reason, I guess not even for some reason, It's really satisfying to start knocking off those floating, repairing, or orbiting or rotating things at the top there. Yeah, hate them. They're like symbols of his health, and yeah, while he's still got 4, not good. See, look how far out this guy is. Like, is he really in the battle? Like, he's staying safe, but yeah, I'll have to sort of review what's going on here. He seems a little too far out. No, though, he might be doing what I just read about this week. I read or heard this incredible number in that 1947, I don't know if it was the US Army or maybe it's the British Army, they started to think, you know, how effective are our troops actually? So this was right after the Second World War, so you would assume that they were studying, you know, fairly battle-hardened veterans, so these guys are used to shooting people, you'd assume. Now, what they found is only 25% of the troops were even firing in the general direction of the enemy. I repeat, only 25%, or less than 25%, were even firing in the general direction of the enemy. And only 2%, or actually less than 2%, were actually shooting to kill, i.e. aiming specifically to try to kill the enemy. So, in the modern time, they've got around this problem in 2 ways. More and more, the hard killing or the hard invading or the hard, you know, the hard shit basically gets entrusted to the elite corps. Guys who they already know make up that 2%. The other way they help that problem is they make less and less soldiers actually a combat troop. I believe at the Second World War it was only 1 in 4 soldiers were actually combat troops. By the Vietnam War that was already like 1 in 14, and now that it's something like 1 in 32nd or something. Now that doesn't mean these other soldiers are getting no combat training, but they are not trained with the expectation that they will become specifically combat soldiers. Yeah, so how's that for incredible fact of the day? Yeah, those numbers blew me away. And you know, in some ways, I'm kind of glad that the average guy really has a hard time shooting or killing somebody else. In many ways, it's a very heartening number. Okay, looks like I have not been able to knock down 2 of those rotating, orbiting orb things at the top, so on that basis, he's at half strength. Oh, look, so he's down to 1. Excellent. He's at quarter strength now if we go based on that. Yeah, you know, I finally got this sense now that we've got him over a barrel. We're going to win this one. And this is a perfect example of the ship that's run aground at a big distance, and even though it's safe because he's so far, the ability to sort of affect punishment is also fairly limited. But at least he's safe. Knowing that that was going to be a problem, I tried to start my boats in the most open water area of the map, but yeah, eventually it was going to happen, so looks like we've got him now, so no worries. Yeah, this fortress's ability to hurt us now is extremely limited. It's good because we're only laying in slightly more punishment to him. And the repair ability now is really improved. Even on the battlefield, you don't have to carry so much crystal now to just keep replacing those little things like the shield projectors and, you know, all this detection technology. If it was the old system, it would just be a nightmare keeping enough materials on board. It is a little odd though, suddenly having my crystal trays and my scrap smelter being useless. Overnight, you're going to be able to date YouTube videos simply by whether they have the detector technology on them and whether there's, well, I guess it's hard to detect whether what kind of resource collection, but yeah, the detector technology alone is going to instantly date all the YouTube videos. It's like when they changed from the what they were using before the cram cannon, that thing that just fired like crazy. Yeah, those videos look so dated now. And the super old ones, you don't see too many of them, where they still have just the single blocks. You know, I forgot to notice, but did they take out stuff like Hearthstone and that out of the options in the building menu? I could be speaking from ignorance, but I thought that was something from many years ago that just isn't used anymore. So, but again, I could be wrong. Very easy. Okay, yeah, Fortress, it's done. It's the beginning of the end now. It's gonna take a while though. There's a lot of blocks here, and so yeah, you can tell it's slowing down, just sort of figuring out what it's gonna do. Now, as I understand it, and again I could easily be wrong, new playthrough and all, once you take out the home base, there's no more spawns, but obviously you still have to kill the squares off. Well, I guess it's not a requirement, but I kind of like to blap out the squares if I can. So what I'll be doing is I'll treat the remaining squares as basically really rigorous shakedown for my new designs to go after the white flares. All the ships will be either completely redesigned or completely overhauled to meet the white flares. My understanding, they're very different. They're about speed, and they're completely different kettle of fish. And unlike last time, where after I finished the deep water, I kind of rushed in to go after the Onyx without really setting up my logistics and infrastructure properly, and sort of just playing catch up the whole time. I don't want to be like that this time. I want to be set up properly before I start. The center of the fleet, when I go to the flares, will be my new cruiser, or light cruiser. And as I said, it's a very unique kind of vessel, and it's very much an experiment. So yeah, with Grigotz's help, we're designing a novel solution to what we hope the challenge will be, or what I expect the challenge will be. I'm expecting, as I mentioned, them to be a lot faster, as well as apparently they love ramming, so I'm going to try to keep my boats fairly mobile. I think I do a pretty good job of that already, but mobility is going to be a key. Yeah, and apparently the white flares are religious fanatics, so yeah, I'm not really into the religious fanaticism thing, so in that sense, I'm not going to have a problem warring with them. In fact, compared to the Onyx, yeah, I'd much rather beat on the flares. The trouble for the Onyx is, even though they were our buddies, we really needed their steel before we took on anybody else. That's all. You know, the only thing stopping this from being a despot simulator game is that there's no actual representation of people. Otherwise, yeah, we're kind of assholes. Most of us pretend we'd be one of the benevolent guys who actually cares about their people. And you know, I'm sure a lot of despots would kind of pretend that too, but the result is often not even close. Okay, enough of that weird digression. There will be at least one more Onyx episode where we basically test the new ships out, and yeah, even though Onyx is essentially killed, they will be exciting missions just as vehicle testing missions. And I won't have it right away, but at some point fairly early on against white flares, I want to bring out a laser ship too. That's something brand new to me, and I really need to sort of get my brain on top of that. Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe.